Hello everyone, Andy Schwab here with your Northern Ag TV as we've had the opportunity to come to Laramie for the Wyoming Stock Growers Annual Convention, and with us now Wyoming Governor Mr. Mark Gordon, and appreciate you joining us here today. You know, last year the Wyoming Stock Growers had a big fire effort relief fund that produced almost $500,000 for those producers that were affected by the wildfires across much Wyoming, and I know you and your office has really been focused on making sure that these producers are going to have those federal funds and some state funds as well.
You bet, Andy. Last year was just an extraordinary fire year, and we just lost so much. And it was great that the stock growers are able to come together like we always do, as neighbor to neighbor. We also talked about what we could do at the state level, and had a little bit of challenge with our legislature. They were thinking this was going to be money that went from the state to private individuals. We were saying, no, this is like weed and pest. You know, this is the ability to come back and be able to treat some of those areas that are coming back. You've been through fires. You know, sometimes it comes back with a lot of cheatgrass. We wanted to make sure we didn't get a continuing problem. We finally got some of that done. We've got about, right off the top of my head, I think we've got something around $42 million that we've been able to get deployed to basically weed and pest districts and others. And we're looking at a loan program on that too.
Good.
So.
Well, speaking of working with the federal level, you know, we've seen a new administration come in this year, and they've certainly brought together a lot of things for these producers. Talk about, you know, just the big wins that we've seen so far, and things that you're looking forward to working with the federal level, probably some RMPs.
Yeah, right off the bat, Doug Burgum's a good friend, the Secretary of Interior. We're really excited we're hoping that Brian Nesvik, our former Game and Fish Director, who really knows grizzly bears, it's an issue, knows wolves, that he'll be confirmed here pretty shortly, made it through committee. That's going to be exciting. Talking to Doug early on, we were able to kind of put back the implementation on the Rock Springs RMP, really a piece of work in the last administration that we're hoping we can get fixed. The Miles City and Buffalo RMPs, and also looking at Newcastle, just to make sure that we get them right. And it's important we get this done quickly, because all that testimony came at the end of the Biden administration. It's all still fresh. The Biden administration completely ignored our recommendations, our consistency review, just getting them back on track and making sure it works for people.
Yeah, and another 11th hour Biden administration rule was that Endangered Species Act with the grizzly bear. It seemed like, the comment period just ended, and I know Wyoming was very focused on putting their comments in.
Oh yeah, you know, the bear's been delisted in the greater Yellowstone area at least twice before, once under Trump, once under Obama, oddly enough. Each time it's been put back, we were really angling for getting that done. I know for Montana, I know for Idaho, this has been a huge issue. One of the issues they kept talking about was, are you going to have genetic diversity? And we said, yeah, we can fix that. Last year, your governor gave us a gift. I say that a little lightheartedly. One of them went to Yellowstone, but the other one, south of Yellowstone, moved 2 grizzlies out of Montana into Wyoming, just to demonstrate that we can do this. You know, we can manage these bears. So we want to get that back on track. When you've got bears that are showing up in the southern end of the Bighorns, and you got bears that are showing up, south of Kemmer in the southern part of Wyoming, just out in the plains, you know that they've expanded their range.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up here, of course, this legislative session wrapped up not too long ago, and you're working your way through all those bills right now yourself. Talk about some of the wins for agriculture out of this last legislative session.
Well, like I said, I think one of the big wins was being able to convince the legislature that some of this stuff for fire restoration is kind of critical. Northeast part of the state just got hammered. Most of it private and state, so no federal parts of it. It did prompt us to have a task force that's going to come in, look at how we can run our fire response a little bit better. We're going to be working with the legislature on that. I think there were some really good efforts at educating brand new legislators. We had a whole turnover, a lot of first timers, and I think some of them were kind of brought up a little bit short because, it all seems easy when you're on the campaign trail, and when you actually get there, it gets a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. Absolutely. A lot to come also here from the Wyoming Stock Growers Annual Convention, and we appreciate Mr. Governor Mark Gordon for joining us here today. We'll be back in a little bit to look at your ag markets.
From the beginning, we've worked closely with farmers. BNSF's ties to the agricultural community go back 175 years. Together, we've innovated to make the U.S. agriculture supply chain one of the most efficient and productive in the world. Our strong relationship powers BNSF still today and helps us move the nation like no one else can. At BNSF, we move the nation for you.
Talking with someone that is stressed out, those are difficult things to approach, but if you're good friends with those people, reach out and say, I'm here to talk to you. We can find somewhere to get some assistance. It's hard to get involved, but at the same time, you want to just say, hey, there is help available.
For more tips in dealing with stress in agriculture or for free counseling for egg producers, visit beyondtheweather.com.
Welcome back, friends, as we go to look at your markets. But before we do, we had some exciting news also coming from the Wyoming Stock Growers Annual Banquet this week, as Wyoming Stock Growers Executive Vice President Jim Magagna was honored with the Jim Magagna Endowment Fund. Now, that fund was set up by Mr. Mark Isley, NCBA past president, and also Kelly Crane, the University of Wyoming College of Agriculture dean. And they've actually put together over $65,000 for this endowment fund that will help the Wyoming Stock Growers have a permanent intern. Now, they are continuing to accept funds for that, and we'll continue to have details for you if you want to contribute to that. Now, when we turn to our cattle markets, well, prices have been holding in pretty strong lately, and many of the traders this week have been waiting to see where the cash cattle markets are going to come in at to make sure they're able to get in those futures just with that much more confidence. Of course, the confidence is the hard part to come by when you're at the top of the tree, and any movement seems to be like the top branch is about to snap off. However, many traders are certainly enjoying the view from the pinnacle of the market's history. Similar stories can be said for the local auctions, as many producers are waiting on go for the summer video sale season. In the meantime, limited head counts continue to be the story, with cull cows making up the bulk of the trade and prices not having any issues holding on to those elevated prices. On the wheat trade this week, they focus on the small improvements to the weekly crop conditions report that showed winter wheat increasing 2% in the good to excellent category to 52%. Spring wheat also had minor improvements, and that, however, was enough for traders to head for the hills. North Dakota led that with an 11-point boost in that good to excellent rating, while their port of very poor conditions actually dropped 14% from last week's reading. The crop progress report at the first glance also had a bearish tone for corn, although for the finer details, they did include some intriguing storylines to follow over the next couple of weeks. First, it was the corn plantings at nearly 93% complete across the U.S. as of Sunday, which is equal to the 5-year average for early June. For the crop conditions, though, for corn, the national corn did gain 1 point to 69% good to excellent as of Sunday. Well, that's all the time we have for today's Northern Ag TV. I'm Andy Schwab. Have a great rest of your day.